I don't want to go swimming. I never liked my weekly Wednesday lessons. Yet, I also looked forward to Wednesdays. Because it was the only day I could meet a certain girl. She was from a different school, and I could only see her on lesson days. I always waited for this girl named Jessica at the entrance of the swimming club. Whenever I saw Jessica coming alone, I kept waving at her vigorously. "Hey, Michael." "Hey, Jessica." Before we knew it, we became close friends. For me, that alone made my day happy. In first grade, I might have been precocious, but that was when I experienced the feeling of liking a girl for the first time. That was the beginning of my first love. My name is Michael Parker. Now, I work as a substitute teacher at a certain high school while coaching the swim team. Seeing the freshness of the 10th grade team members reminds me of the swimming lessons I hated. My first ever lesson was swimming. It wasn't something I started out of my own will. It was forced upon me by my parents' wishes. Every week, my mom would never let me skip, no matter how much I cried and resisted. Remembering how much I cried and fussed over just an hour of lesson once a week, I feel embarrassed, but it also brings back memories of my first love. It was the 4th time I went swimming. Like always, I was crying and screaming at the entrance, not wanting to go. Then, a girl approached me and taking my hand, she said, "Let's go together." That was my encounter with Jessica. The tears that had been flowing stopped abruptly when this unfamiliar girl spoke to me. Back then, in first grade, I was accompanied by my mom, but Jessica entered alone, changed, and came out to the pool side. Her confident behavior made me feel embarrassed about myself. After that, I stopped crying at the entrance of the swimming club. When I started showing up at the pool side without crying, Jessica began to look out for me when I was alone. "You came without crying today." Though I was a bit irritated by her slightly condescending tone, I was thrilled to be spoken to, and my heart raced. Trying not to let her see through me, I awkwardly boasted, "Yeah, I like swimming too." I was uttering words I had never thought of before. Afraid of putting my face in the water and opening my eyes, I pushed aside my fear and tried hard not to look uncool in front of Jessica. "Wow, you did it. Look, I can open my eyes underwater." I experienced the joy of being able to do something I couldn't do before. Since then, I started looking forward to Wednesdays, which I used to dislike. Because Jessica went to a different school, I could only see her on swimming lesson days. As we both got better at swimming, we shared our joy together. As I continued with the lessons, swimming became enjoyable for me. For me, Jessica was both a great rival and a dear friend. Fueled by the desire not to lose and the desire to learn together, I could see my swimming skills improving. I, who was once afraid of putting my face in water and opening my eyes underwater, managed to swim 25 meters in freestyle. Jessica, seeing my joy, was as happy for me as if it were her own achievement. As a child, I thought such days would go on forever, as if it were the most natural thing. Yet, one day, Jessica unexpectedly missed the lesson. I thought it was just a one-off absence, but she didn't come the next week or the week after that either. "Mr. Johnson, what happened to Jessica?" "Jessica, due to her family's circumstances, she moved away. That's why she quit at the end of last month." What? More than the fact that Jessica had quit, I was shocked that I hadn't been told anything. That day, I was so down that I couldn't even hear what Mr. Johnson was saying, and I couldn't focus on my practice. I hardly knew anything about Jessica, who I could only meet on lesson days since she was from a different school. I didn't know her home address or phone number, so there was no way to contact her. However, I didn't quit swimming. I thought that if I continued swimming, I would surely meet her again someday. That was about all I could come up with as a child. I joined the swimming team as my extracurricular activity when I became a junior high student. I, who could barely swim 25 meters, was able to grow to the point where I could swim 100 meters and compete with others. If Jessica was still swimming, she might recognize me when my name was called at a competition. That was the only reason I practiced so hard. Thanks to that, I became a swimmer who could set records at competitions. Still, I couldn't happen to meet Jessica by chance. Gradually forgetting Jessica's face and voice, I became a high school student. I decided to go to a local high school that was enthusiastic about extracurricular activities, intending to choose the swim team again. The day after the entrance ceremony, I entered the classroom nervously in my brand new uniform. Just as I was about to sit in my seat, I heard someone calling my name. "Michael, long time no see." In front of me was a girl with long, flowing hair and a beaming smile looking at me. I looked at her in disbelief, silent. "Jessica, you're looking at me as if you've seen a ghost. We're in the same school now." It was Jessica, whom I hadn't seen in 5 years. She was my first love, whom I had always wanted to meet again. She had grown into an adult and was smiling right beside me. The excitement of waiting for Jessica, whom I could only meet on Wednesdays, came rushing back in an instant. Ignoring the nostalgic feelings I was reminiscing, Jessica started talking. I thought I might meet some familiar faces if I applied to this school, and here I am, meeting you, Michael. My heart raced as Jessica spoke her mind clearly. Trying not to let Jessica catch on, I kept my composure while looking at her face. "Why did you suddenly quit swimming?" It was something I had always wanted to ask if I ever met her again. "My mom got remarried, and we had to move all of a sudden." "Michael, you continued swimming after that, right? I saw somewhere that you set a new record at a competition. That's awesome." "Wow, thanks. It's hard to believe you were always crying and afraid back then." "Shut up." Jessica chuckled as she saw me flustered, amused by my reaction. I immediately submitted my application to join the swim team. "Michael, are you joining the swim team? Maybe I'll become the team assistant." "You don't swim anymore." "Yeah, I didn't improve that much." Saying that, Jessica submitted her application to join the swim team as a team assistant. From then on, we started having casual conversations in class and during activities, just like when we were kids. I was so happy to feel like we had gone back to our childhood days so quickly, even though we hadn't seen each other for 5 years. This joy reminded me of my first love. I couldn't help but be concerned about Jessica. Not wanting to experience the same sadness as when we were kids, I tried to get closer to Jessica, but without the courage to do so. Our relationship remained the same as always. I couldn't advance beyond being just friends. Carrying that frustration, I decided that after finishing the district tournament in my second year of high school, I would confess to Jessica no matter the outcome. If possible, I wanted to update my personal best and achieve a good result before calling out to Jessica. I put even more effort into my usual practice than ever before. Yet, 2 days before the tournament, misfortune struck me. I was hit by a car that failed to stop, with no brakes applied. The bicycle I was riding was split in two. My body flew through the air and was slammed to the ground. When I came to, I was on a hospital bed. Though I had survived, my left leg below the knee was gone. What happened to my leg? Unable to get up from the bed due to the shock of the accident, I managed to lift my head to look at both legs under the blanket. While there was a bulge where my right leg was, the area below the knee of my left leg was flat. Why? Where did my leg go? I took my father's hand, who was beside me, and asked with a trembling voice, "Michael." Next to my father, my mother was covering her face with her hands, crying. My father couldn't say anything but hug me and cried together as I shed tears. Lying in bed, I just stared blankly at the ceiling. Friends from middle school, high school, the swim team coach, and even Jessica came to visit me, but I didn't want to see anyone's face, nor did I want anyone to see me like this. Only Jessica came to visit me many times. She would knock on the door of the hospital room and show her face. "Don't come in, go away." I threw cold words at her. "I'll come again tomorrow." Saying that, Jessica closed the door of the hospital room. Curled up under the blanket, I couldn't stop crying. Despite my attitude not changing, Jessica kept visiting me day after day. About 2 weeks after the accident, I let Jessica into my room. I guess my persistence paid off. She laughed mischievously, showing a playful smile. "Why aren't you angry? This is just me lashing out." I was irritated that Jessica wasn't getting angry. I don't know. I just couldn't stop worrying about you, Michael." Jessica answered, and I had my face under the blanket. I couldn't hold back my tears because I was touched by her kindness. I didn't want to show such a pathetic sight. Yet, Jessica pulled back the blanket. "You're crying, right, Michael? You haven't changed at all, from the past to now. When you want to cry, cry boldly." Hearing those words from Jessica, my tears suddenly stopped. She had seen me crying many times when I was a child. Pretending to be cool now wouldn't change the impression of me being a crybaby. I don't know how to act now that I'm like this. "Why, you are still you, Michael. Just be yourself as always," Jessica said with a serious face. Looking at Jessica's face, I felt silly for moping about something changing. Right, I'm still me. Exactly, you is you. Not anything more, not anything less. What's that supposed to mean? I managed to smile a bit at Jessica's brightness. "Thanks for treating me the same." "Hey, what's that about? It's not very like you, Michael." "What do you mean, not like me?" Finally, I found the courage to face my current situation. I started to think about the fact that I was still alive, even after losing my leg. Up until now, I had spent most of my time practicing swimming. When I thought about what would remain of me now that swimming was taken away from me, I was filled with nothing but anxiety. However, Jessica, knowing my anxiety, or perhaps by coincidence, came to visit me every day. We engaged in mundane conversations, talking about things that happened at school or about a television show we watched the day before. Just that was enough to alleviate my anxieties. I began walking practice with a prosthetic leg and was discharged from the hospital when I got used to it. Months later, I returned to school. Upon returning to school, I consulted with Mr. Williams, who was both my class teacher and the swim team coach. Addressing my concerns about the future, Mr. Williams said, "For 17-year-old you, there are many possibilities ahead. Carrying a handicap might be tough, but it also enables you to empathize with those in weaker positions. How about becoming an amazing teacher like me?" Mr. Williams, you're amazing." I deadpanned at Mr. Williams's joking remark, which made him laugh embarrassingly. But seeing Mr. Williams, I genuinely started to want to become a teacher. The first person I shared my newfound dream with was Jessica. "Hey teacher, you'll have to study hard from now on. I'll help you study." We started studying together in the library after school. Then, I went to university to pursue teaching, and Jessica went to a different university. Even though we were heading down separate paths, my desire to be with Jessica as before grew stronger, and I finally confessed my feelings during our graduation ceremony. Jessica was delighted, and I was at the peak of happiness. Whenever I experienced such happiness, my thoughts inevitably turned to swimming and the records I had set. I didn't have a specific goal of participating in big tournaments, but I was proud of my swimming achievements. Yet, due to the sudden loss of my leg, my life as an athlete ended in an instant. I knew there were people swimming with handicaps, but I couldn't forgive myself for not being able to swim as before and stop swimming altogether. However, the human heart is selfish, and I found it sad to completely let go of something. Jessica seemed to sense my mixed feelings. That's why, for the first time, she brought up something she had never mentioned before. "Why don't you try swimming again, Michael? For your health, you know, there are swimming classes at school too." I felt as if Jessica saw right through me, and out of embarrassment and frustration, I yelled at her. "How could you understand how I feel?" That was our first fight since we started dating. It was more of a one-sided outburst from me than a fight, and Jessica just listened without saying a word. After the fight, we didn't contact each other. We, who used to exchange trivial emails every day, suddenly went about 2 weeks without any communication. I wanted to apologize by email many times, but the longer I waited, the harder it became to say. Determined, I went to Jessica's university to apologize in person and waited for her. A few minutes later, Jessica appeared at the main gate. As I was about to call out to her, I noticed she was with a guy. Even if he was just a university friend, I turned away, not wanting to see them together. At that moment, a thought crossed my mind. Jessica might be happier with another man, someone without a disability like me. I decided it was time to stop holding Jessica back. With that thought, I changed my phone number that day and cut off all contact with Jessica. Later, I obtained my teaching license and secured a job at a private high school. Shortly after I started working as a high school teacher, the school, aware of my achievements, asked me to coach the swim team. I haven't swum in years, so I'm not confident I can provide proper guidance. Of course, I intended to decline by saying just that. Yet, not one to back down easily, I ended up taking on the role of swim team coach in my first year as a teacher. Initially nervous, I soon found joy in coaching the kids, unable to forget the swimmer I once was. Watching the children improve rapidly, I became passionate about coaching. As a result, the swim team, which hadn't even placed in competitions, started achieving remarkable results. Even I, who had given up on swimming, began to feel the urge to swim again. And inevitably, I would remember the time I fought and parted ways with Jessica. Perhaps things between Jessica and me would have been different if I had listened to her that day. One day, while pondering such thoughts, I heard through some friends that Jessica had gotten married. Although it might be a lie to say I wasn't shocked, I was genuinely happy to hear such joyful news. In my heart, I wished for Jessica's happiness. From then on, I threw myself into coaching the swim team to forget about Jessica. The students rapidly improved under my guidance, undergoing a transformation unlike anything from when I first started coaching. However, a sudden misfortune struck. One day, 11 years after I started coaching the swim team, a student, possibly due to exhaustion, stumbled after getting out of the pool and hit his head on the pool side. Although it resulted in a cut and bleeding, it was not a serious injury. However, I was criticized by a parent who suggested that the student's injury might have been due to my excessive coaching. I apologized sincerely many times. Following the incident, the way the school looked at me changed. People who had once praised me for the swim team's records now looked at me coldly, as if they had turned their backs on me. Feeling frustrated and betrayed, I submitted my resignation and quit teaching. Though I was downcast, I thought that maybe there was something else I was meant to do, considering I had survived the accident, and decided to look overseas. I wanted to teach swimming to children abroad. But could I really abandon the swim team students who had followed my passionate coaching and just run away from America? I pondered this until the moment I boarded the plane, reminding myself that life is once. I left America with a mix of regret and hope. Then one day, as I was traveling abroad, I received tragic news. Mr. Williams, the high school teacher who had inspired me to become a teacher, had passed away. I immediately decided to return to America. Arriving back in America after a long time, I felt the weight of the 10 years that had passed since I quit teaching. Despite my grief, I attended Mr. Williams's funeral. Meeting old friends there, I looked around, half expecting to see Jessica, when Sarah, Mr. Williams's widow, approached me. "You're Michael, right?" "Yes, my condolences." After I spoke in a subdued tone, she responded, "Thank you. Having everyone here would certainly have pleased my husband." Despite her expression of sorrow, Mrs. Williams continued speaking. "During his lifetime, my husband was very concerned about you, Michael, after you left teaching. If it's all right with you, would you consider returning as a swim team coach?" Hearing this, I was reminded of my past regrets. Taking up the coach's role might allow me to overcome the regrets that had been smoldering inside me. I decided to work as a substitute teacher at my alma mater. As soon as I returned to the familiar pool for daily practice, a flood of memories, both sweet and bitter, rushed back to me. "Hello." While I was standing dazed by the poolside, a cheerful voice of a girl called out to me. Her voice was so similar to Jessica's that I turned around in confusion. "Are you the new coach by any chance?" "Nice to meet you. I'm Michael Parker." "I'm Megan, the swim team captain. Nice to meet you." "Isn't the practice supposed to be off today?" "Yes, but I feel weird taking a day off, so I came to do some strength training." "Wow, you're quite serious, huh?" "Mr. Parker, you used to practice here, right? I saw the shields and trophies in front of the staff room." "Those were the glories of the past. And so, after 10 years, my job as a teacher at my alma mater began. Soon after, I encountered someone special. On a day, some parents came to watch the extracurricular activities. That's where I found Jessica. It seemed like an illusion at first, but Jessica was talking with Megan, the student. "Look, Mom, that's Mr. Parker, our new coach." "Hey, Michael," Jessica murmured, standing there stunned. "Hey, Mom, you know him." Megan's words didn't reach me, and I was looking at Jessica as she said, "We were high school classmates, right, Mr. Parker?" "Yeah, it's quite a surprise to meet a classmate like this." Jessica, whom I met after a long time, had a few wrinkles on her face, showing the passage of time, but she still had the same smile as before. On another day, Megan, having learned that her mother and I were classmates, told me about her family background without being asked. "My dad and mom were classmates in college. Then, my dad passed away when I was in my second year of middle school. Now, it's just the two of us." She shared this with a smile on her face. You might think so what? But Mom was looking at a photo of her and you together the other day. She didn't notice I was behind her. She quickly hid it, but she still kept it all this time. I couldn't meet Megan's gaze. I've never seen it before, and she was really close with my dad, but maybe meeting you again unlocked something that was sealed away. Hearing this, I remained silent. After that, my feelings for Jessica seemed to resurface, and she was all I could think about. I couldn't look properly at Megan, her daughter, even though I was the coach. The more I tried to focus on my job as a swim coach, the more Jessica's face would appear in my mind. Meeting Jessica again under these circumstances made me wonder if it was a gift from God. This time, I wanted to make Jessica happy. From the bottom of my heart, that's what I felt. On a day when there was no club activity, Jessica came to the practice venue alone for some reason. I was swimming in the pool, wearing my prosthetic leg, with no students around. When I surfaced, I saw Jessica and was confused. Is something wrong? Actually, my daughter asked me to come watch today's practice, but today is an off day for the practice, isn't it? I immediately realized that Megan had been considerate. Megan. I wonder if Jessica noticed her daughter being considerate. She was laughing as if she found it amusing. Before I could say anything, Jessica started speaking first. "Your swimming is just like it used to be. I'm relieved to see you still swimming." "No, it's different. Meeting you made me want to swim again." I finally apologized for the day we had a falling out. "I'm sorry for yelling at you that day. I thought you'd be happier with the man you were with, so I changed my phone number back then." "The man? You mean my husband? He told me it was okay to have someone else in my heart." Jessica looked down, embarrassed. "He made me happy, but Jessica seemed about to say something but held back. "I'm going to live honestly from now on. I don't want to give up swimming, and Struggling to find the right words, I mumbled, but Jessica was smiling at me. "So, like when we were kids, would you support me again?" Jessica laughed softly and extended her little finger towards me. "What, really?" "It's a pinky promise. This time, don't disappear without me knowing." I extended my right pinky and made a pinky promise with Jessica. A single tear rolled down Jessica's cheek. After that, we talked about many things. Jessica shared her feelings about moving away due to her mother's marriage, the fight we had, and how suddenly she lost contact with me. She openly shared her joy at our reunion when I became her daughter's swim team coach, not hiding anything from me. Jessica's confident demeanor hadn't changed from when we were kids to now, making me feel somewhat pathetic for not being able to be honest about my feelings. Still, determined to respond to Jessica's willingness to be by my side, I vowed never to leave her side again. Looking into Jessica's eyes, I made that solemn promise in my heart.